In this video, I will be sharing my crispy gingerbread recipe. They are gluten-free, grain-free, refined sugar-free, plant-based. They're crispy, they're delicious. Stay tuned. Gingerbread is definitely one of my favorite holiday cookies, and this one ticks all the boxes for something I don't have to feel too guilty about indulging in. Start with a big bowl and then add into that 1.5 cups of ground almonds, almond flour, almond powder, they're all the same thing. Half a cup of cassava flour, 1/4 cup of tapioca starch, 1 tablespoon of ground ginger, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, half a teaspoon of allspice, and 1/4 teaspoon of sea salt. And whisk all of that together to get rid of lumps. You'll set it aside. And then use a separate bowl for the wet ingredients. Add into here 1/4 cup of melted and cooled coconut oil, 1/4 cup of maple syrup, or you can use honey here as well, 2 tablespoons of coconut palm sugar, 2 teaspoons of molasses, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And whisk all of that together until it's nice and smooth. Add your wet ingredients to your dry ingredients. And stir that together until it starts to form a dough. This can seem really crumbly at first. Just be patient, keep stirring until it starts to hydrate. Finishing this with your hand is the best way to get it to come together. Don't add more liquid until you've tried kneading it for a second with your hand, because it's probably going to come together after you get that moisture evenly distributed. Just keep kneading this until a nice dough forms. Flatten your dough out into a square and get it wrapped up and into the fridge so that it can firm up a little bit. It only needs about an hour till it's ready to be rolled, and wrapping it up prevents it from drying out. I like to roll out my dough between parchment paper. You can also dust your work surface with cassava flour and roll it out. Just being careful not to use too much flour because it will dry the dough out each time you re-roll it. Cover that with another piece of parchment paper and start to roll this out gently. It can crack at first, especially if it's too cold. Just again, patience is key when you are baking. Take your time to roll this out. As you start to roll it out, you might find you don't need the parchment paper on top. This dough is actually really easy to roll out and doesn't tend to stick to the rolling pin in most cases. Get that to the thickness you want. The thinner it is, the faster it will bake. And then use a cookie cutter to cut this into any shape that you like. This dough can be a little finicky if you're trying to use really detailed, intricate cookie cutters, but any basic shape should work totally fine. If the dough gets too warm, it can start to fall apart on you, but just again, being patient. This dough is actually surprisingly forgiving. Don't be in too much of a rush, and if you do tear one, it's again, not a big deal. Just gently push it back together and put it onto the tray. You should be fine. You can re-roll this dough as many times as you want to. Unlike doughs that contain gluten, this will not get tough. It will not change in consistency each time you roll it out. This dough does not spread at all when you're baking, so they can be pretty close together on the tray, and you will put that into a 350-degree oven for 10 to 14 minutes, depending on how thick. Looking for them to darken in color, get a little bit brown around the edges. They will crisp up as they cool, so be patient, let them cool off a little bit, and then enjoy. Please comment below and let me know how the recipe turned out. If you try it, like the video, share it, subscribe to the channel, and have an awesome rest of your holiday season.